Alright, this is what I hope will be a fairly short film to explain how this reclaimed lumber-clad steel truss will be put together, taken apart. So I'm going to start with it finished and work our way back to the raw truss, and then go through and show how I was thinking the whole thing could be put together, the cladding and the other parts, etc. So this is the finished product, and we'll just turn it a little bit like this. The first thing, so what we have is up here there's a wood-clad steel truss frame, and it's bearing on these two beams that come out and are cantilevered out. So these brackets are nothing, these are just decorative brackets, the curved portions there. Because I don't know, but I seriously doubt the truss is going to be able to be constructed without some sort of tension tie across the bottom. I mean, we wanted this for the look, but I think it's going to need to be functional, actually holding the ends of the truss together. This is the less preferred option, where the turnbuckle comes all the way out to the end of the rafter here and there. And the more preferred option would be whether that turnbuckle can stop short at the little vertical steel truss leg. So in taking it apart, first of all the hardware would come out, which is, those are bolts from both sides, either through the pieces of lumber to one another or to the steel framework itself. And then, as I also said, backing up, those curved brackets are strictly decorative. And all of it's supposed to be held up with just this cantilevered bit here and the rest of it. And then we take off the horizontal pieces to reveal the turnbuckle assembly. These pieces are going to need drilled to allow for the seating of the washer and nut, and I don't even know if this is an acceptable thing. Someone will have to tell us whether or not that's doable. But there's the the short turnbuckle that ends at the vertical bearing legs, or the longer turnbuckle that goes all the way through and grabs the ends of the rafters, holding them together. Taking out the turnbuckle, though, the next piece that could come off are the actual cover rafters there, and then you can drop out the curved portions. Those are two individual cut pieces that just bolt up in there. Same with these Gothic pieces at the flanks, those go away. This leaves our vertical legs over the framework. Take off the outer legs, and you can see the fastening methodology down through here. A piece of threaded rod that penetrates this cantilevered bearing beam. We take off those. These two middle legs, they're not needed, I wouldn't think, for structural purposes, but they would help to support all of our lumber going up in there. So those are sleeved with those. Take those off. The next piece that comes off is the horizontal pieces. Those are two pieces that clad that steel collar. Finally, the bottom trim to hide the bottom of the steel goes away. And now it shows you the two. This is the long, less preferred but probably more viable turnbuckle assembly, and this is a simpler arrangement. Might be less viable, but it's preferable. It's probably entirely unviable, I don't know. In terms of member sizes, I don't know anything about this, but right now these are shown, the main rafters are shown as 4" by 6" rectangles. This is a 2" by 6" rectangle, the horizontal, and all of these pieces that come down are 3.5" by 2" pieces, a rectangle. And then there's a saddle up here, which you can see once we drop that out. So that's the basic truss, the simpler version. Obviously the more detailed one is this one, but the simpler version. and then you can see how that is supported up there with the cantilevered beams coming out. That's hem fir, or Doug fir, I mean. Take apart that, and then we have some straps holding all of that together. There'll probably be a piece of hardware here as well, for what that matters. We take that off, and then we drop out those, and you can see the raw truss, the raw steel truss frame, either that version or this version, whichever one is more viable. So I'll start from here, and originally I wasn't showing those pegs coming down through. We might need a combination of the peg coming down through, the threaded rod coming down through, and some sort of a bearing plate to pick up this weight on that Doug fir. I don't know. We also have to consider how we're going to make sure that water doesn't get into the top of that. Another headache. Alright, in part 2 of this film, I'm just going to be showing the framework without some of the background noise to try to demonstrate how I thought the truss could be put together, or the cladding over the truss could be put together. So starting from this basic concept of the truss, whether or not this was before I thought we should have these threaded rods coming down through to bolt it to the cantilever beams, I was showing plates. It may be that we need a combination of the plate and the rod. We're hoping to have engineering specify that, because again, this is just a 2.5 or 2 inch by 3.5 inch square rectangle, so maybe that needs to be spread out some with the plate at the bottom. In any case, starting from the raw truss and either planning on using the shorter turnbuckle or the longer turnbuckle, we get to where we need to go. And then there's the other vertical pieces to help hold our framework up. In any case, the turnbuckle gets installed very last of all of this. So first of all, we have our supporting columns for the cantilevered beams, and one at the end, and then we have our main beams for the regular part of the roof, and there's our cantilevered ones. These ones are notched, and these ones are notched. Those fit together. Okay, it was at this point that I thought perhaps threaded rods ought to be used down through to hold this down, and so there's a camera shift and some parts taken away to show this, and so then you would have this sort of attachment, and those bottoms would just be covered with those, and those were going to be fake like that anyway. So but the procedure then, so we've got this up here that's like this, and there's our main beam in the saddle, 6 by 12. These are ostensibly 6 by 10s, maybe they're 5 by 10s. In any case, we would be wanting 3 inches thick projection coming out here, unnotched projection. And there's our valley rafters and the regular rafters, but we're going to take those away for the purposes of this. And so once the truss is in place and that main beam is in place, first we have to clad the bottom of the steel. If this turnbuckle is either one of these, we have to consider that all of these wood pieces are going to have penetrations for the installation of that turnbuckle at the very end, in one way or another. Next though is this upper piece here, would be the next piece to get clad with these pieces here. You can see how those are kind of put together. And then we have a U-channel kind of wood beam put together by Tuscarora. And that fits up there to cover that. And we have some four-sided column covers here, and hopefully they have a bottom that's integrated. I don't know if that's possible or how that will be done, but that's the plan there. Then we come to the end, and obviously with this beam in place we can't slide them up like we did these ones, so these are two-piece. That one goes on and then it gets capped. The next pieces that would go up are these Gothic arches cut in 4 separate pieces. Those are just bolt assembly there. As you can see that we have the core for the turnbuckle in place here. And then two separate arch pieces, 1, 2, again bolted and cored for the turnbuckle. And then caps would hide, presumably, regardless of whether those threaded rods are through or not, those caps would go on there decoratively. Then the turnbuckle could go in. One or the other of these turnbuckles could be installed and capped off if it's the long one. So as this lumber goes up, this needs cord to match the holes through the framework for whatever turnbuckle is ultimately used. And then we can put on the rafter cladding. We'll just switch the angle a little bit here. Put on the rafter cladding. Finally, these horizontal pieces, like this. Turnbuckle again, whether it's a short one or the long one, with the caps at the end. This is a super short truss with no extension of the legs. The rafters would be the same, but like that. Turnbuckle, either way. And then the hardware goes on. I mean, this is the hardware that's going to hold that on, hold these pieces on. Ultimately, although the exact methodology will have to be determined in the field. And the trim, and we just build up, then the rest of this is all getting built here as we go along. And we're back to where we started. I think that is all. Yep.